All right, so Elon Musk has revealed a new video of Optimus, the Tesla humanoid robot, doing some cool kung fu moves. The Optimus project now appears to have most of Elon's attention these days, and we just might see the next version of Optimus revealed at the investor meet in November. But will it be the Gen 3 version of Optimus, and how much of a step change will it be from the Gen 2.5 version that we've seen recently? I've got Scott Walter and Gustav Andersson back with me for a deep dive into this latest Optimus video. Scott is a mechanical and aerospace engineer and two-time founder of robotics companies. Gustav is a hand surgeon and associate professor of anatomy in northern Sweden. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Well, some of our viewers might not know, but I'm also somewhat of a kung fu master myself. So had to dig out my old uniform from back in the days. So interesting.
Thank you for making the effort. Thank you.
So some of those viewers may not know that I'm actually a runner. So you have the fight, I have the flight mode.
And I just sit here like a rock.
Yeah.
All right, so interesting times. Past few hours, there's been a lot of speculation about what's going on. Where do you guys stand on what Elon has revealed?
Scott, you want to start? I think you had a really interesting point of view when it comes to all of these kung fu action sequences that were being shown.
Okay, so a lot of what Optimus is doing there, especially right at the beginning, you notice how it kind of bounced like that. Does it remind you a little bit of like Mario Kart and some of these other video games where you just have a bunch of sequences that you kind of trigger in there that it goes through? And so this has all been motion captured ahead of time, which is what a lot of these video games do, and then they distill it down. But in this case, the motion capture was kind of washed through RL in order to train the robot to be able to emulate these moves very faithfully, and so it's very choreographed. So it's no different than what we saw with dancing, except in this case, it's now more kung fu moves.
Right.
You can probably, Gustav, answer this question a bit more. I think it's called a kata, is it? Where there's like a series of moves that you go through kind of in a warm-up that are already pre-scripted that everyone knows ahead of time.
Yeah. So in the Japanese arts, the kata is what you're talking about. So kung fu is more like the Chinese version, or wushu would be what they're referring to it today. And I would actually say that this looks less like kung fu and perhaps more like a Japanese style, or perhaps something from another part of the Orient.
Okay, that I wouldn't know. You know, but I know all I know is it's martial art.
Yeah.
That, you know, there's certainly, everyone was like, said it's amazing how well Optimus is able to track what the human is doing. Now, this is not teleoperated. So the opponent, Optimus's opponent, is doing a series of movements, but those movements are not being mirrored by Optimus. Optimus is doing its own thing. And everyone is just kind of wondering, it's like, wow, look how well they're synchronized. Optimus is really keeping up with him. And it's like, no. It's the other way around. The human is keeping properly up with Optimus, so it appears well synced. And of course, that's what any kind of choreography is going to be. There's going to be one person who, say, I guess, is maybe leading, and everyone else has to follow. So that's what we're seeing there. And now the other thing is a certain amount of stunt coordination. So I don't know if this is actually someone who is a stunt actor, or whether it's actually someone who's a member of the Optimus team. But a lot of times in Hollywood, you know, they're going through, they coordinate what the fight sequence is going to be. I'm going to put my arm up like this. You go ahead and pretend to do a blocking. You do this and that. And you're seeing a little bit of that going on. Then you see just before the shove happens that Optimus is just kind of sitting there and it's like, okay, dude, I'm ready. Give me your best. You know, it's so that is well scripted. And that's extremely important because he could be really hurt if Optimus somehow happened to do a swing at that point. So they know exactly what's going on. And someone on the background has got like their hand on the e-stop or something else to make sure that Optimus is blocked. And now you can go ahead and take the blow, because you know, he comes in pretty hard. We usually we see butts being kicked, but it's really rare that we've seen someone really kind of go in like that, except like from behind where they're pushing it. But Optimus's arms are up there, and that was a bit risky. Part of it is that you notice when Optimus went back that his arms, rather than being down kind of at waist level, comes up kind of high. So that's kind of safe, but you'll see that Optimus's right arm gets suddenly up at his head level. Now, that is more or less just a reaction, or let's say it's more of an inertial effect. But you have to remember that point, Optimus is trying to not lose his balance. And when that happens, arms could flail, everything else is kind of going on. So you have to be very, very careful to make sure when doing this that they're not going to be injured. Again, this may be someone who is used to doing things like this, or maybe it is actually a member of the Optimus team.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I encourage everyone. When you go to school, take up a good hobby. You know, just because you're a physicist doesn't mean you shouldn't learn math or say music. It turns out a lot of physicists have got a lot of inspiration from music or martial arts or art or something like that. They can be very, very complementary. So here you got a guy who maybe he's an AI expert and is like doing all this programming, but in his spare time he's been doing this martial arts stuff. And guess what? Suddenly comes in handy at work. So this kind of shows why you want to try to find something else to complement what you're doing, because it could actually come in useful.
Yeah, definitely. So could we look at some of the moves? Because I think this whole choreography kind of gives away parts of the lackluster movement or motion that the bot can do. So, I mean, if they wanted to go for the Kung Fu or the Neo scene, which many are referring to, like when he's training with Morpheus, a lot of the moves are not the same. So this, if you pause there, like in the beginning where he stands with his hands up, it looks more like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, if you play that. So if you find the old GIF, you can look at Scorpion. Whereas he has open palms rather when Neo is doing it, like an old reference to Jet Li or Wong Fei-hong movies from the early 90s. So either they decided, oh, let's go for the Easter egg that it's going to be Scorpion or old Mortal Kombat-esque pose, or they just couldn't get the palms upwards, which is like what Neo is doing in that clip. But then after they do their kind of greeting, which I don't understand why they did that one. It's like a boxing reference maybe, because in boxing you kind of hit the other gloves on top. If you've seen Rocky, I must break you. Perhaps that's the reference. But if it would have been Kung Fu or something else, they would either, or Japanese part, they would bow, or they would do the palm and fist. And perhaps I would like them to done that, to see, can they do a palm and a fist?
Okay.
It's a bit interesting why they choose those things. Am I over analyzing it? But it's
no, I don't think you are. I think there's some good points there in that just because Elon said it's Kung Fu doesn't mean it's Kung Fu.
That's not good. That's not Kung Fu. If you go when they do the in
and that little taunt there, what is that? That little taunt where it says come and get
over here.
Is that from like a Bruce Lee movie, or is that an actual
so usually when Jet Li does this move, and also Neo, that's why I thought it's meant to be Neo, because Neo does that, and which is an old reference to older martial arts movies, I think. But when they're doing like the starting pose, so in Japanese martial arts, they are standing a bit higher like this, whereas in Chinese, you really go down low. So you sit where I can't even show it. You sit with your legs square, which is called like the horse stance. It's like you're sitting on a horse, and they're not doing that here. So either it's that the choreographer is more trained in, I don't know, karate or taekwondo. I think they have similar height of the stance. But then that got me thinking about the 1X bot, which they had trying to pick up. I think it was Speed, one of these YouTube influencers, wanted him to pick up a shirt, and he really struggled to go down, but he got down very low. We haven't really seen Optimus go down as low, and maybe it can't really do the
that's a good point. So when I was on earlier with John Herbert, John was kind of talking about, the waist movement looks pretty good. And I said, yeah, it's pretty good in two axes, but not leaning forward. And that is because there is no waist leaning forward that you would need for a bow. There is at the hip flexion, which is down pretty low. And so I'm sure Optimus can lean a little bit forward. I mean, because we do see there is a little bit of leaning, but that's coming again from the leg. The question is whether a deep bow would be possible. And that might be why we don't see it. It was also pointed out, but I don't think it's a problem, because you can kind of see the hands are like this, but the arms don't cross. And I think Optimus should be able to cross the arms. There's no limitation on the degrees of freedom. Because it's got a 3-degree of freedom shoulder. If you took away the rotation, then the arms would only be able to go like this, and you wouldn't be able to get that rotation to come across. And cross arm is very important. So if you want to work like this, you need to do the cross arm. And it's kind of surprising. If you look at the beginning, the human crosses his arms like this, and Optimus just kind of keeps them straight out. And I'm not sure what that's about.
And that's another part when we talk anatomy, we usually start with the anatomical, what do you call it, we call it grundställning, like the anatomical pose in which we stand with our palms forward, and there you can kind of see what we refer to as a carrying angle, where the forearm is not straight down with the body. It's supposed to be out to the side a little bit, so the arm goes down and then it's slightly angled out, and that's the carrying angle, so that we can carry stuff without it hitting our hips. And I'm not sure if they thought of those things in these bot designs, because they're going to be carrying bags, I guess, but perhaps they'll just abduct the shoulders and carry it further out from the body.
They should be able to do it, because they do have that rotation. So they should be able to take the whole arm and really rotate it around like this, so elbow up, into that. So that's, I believe that's all physically possible.
Yeah. And because I don't think you would like to have the abduction activated, because that would be a lot more heavy load than if you're carrying it down by the side. So,
but what could be hard is that, really trying to get the upper part of the arm to cross the body, like what I'm trying to do here, could be mechanically constrictive doing that. But certainly getting the whole forearm out like that, that's possible. So maybe they can only bring the arm like this, but not quite as far as you would be able to with a person. But that's okay. The main thing is that you can get the forearm this way. Yeah, that's what's more important is the lower arm, not the upper arm.
And then the side kick is a bit, I don't know. It's a side kick, but it's like he's falling backwards, and he can't really open up his hips. So that's like what first-year student perhaps would manage, because they're not flexible enough. But it also doesn't really have the balance. But I wonder, that's might be the choreography, but perhaps the joints don't allow for it to find the balance in that position. It kind of has to lean back and almost stumble and have a quite closed crotch.
Well, part of that is I mentioned this in the past, that Optimus will suck at soccer, because the flexion is the very last one. Now I'm trying to think with that kick, with the angle he's there and try to do that kick, is the flexion in the right direction to be able to do that or not?
Yeah, so you would.
You see, he's got to open it up, so he has to rotate to open it up, and now, so the flexion that you're going to have, he wants to kick the knee up probably, right? So he can't. So what's the kick supposed to be? Is it supposed to be with the knee kind of angled down, or the knee straight up?
There are different techniques. Usually, in some techniques, you lead straight forward with your knee, and then you twist it out. So you go up with the knee, and then you rotate it out.
Yeah,
whereas
I don't think you can do that.
Others where you kind of pull it over to the side and then extend it.
Yeah, can't do that, because the order of operation is wrong. Because the rotation comes before the flexion. It needs to be the last in the link, and I think that might be kind of why you get that
kind of like sweeping out things.
Yeah. Again, for the same reason he can't play soccer. He can. He just can't kick it on the side of the foot. He's always going to be a toe kicker, and that might be the same kind of restriction that you have there when it comes to being able to do that. I mean, overall, if you look at it, he seems to move around a little bit stiffly. So it's not any faster than we've seen in the dance videos. And okay speed, not lethargic, but not super fast, not lightning fast. We've seen a lot of the other Chinese bots be definitely a lot faster than that, especially with their footwork. And again, sometimes it seems a bit kind of rigid and tight, not relaxed. And it's probably just because he's a robot, okay, not a human being. We're meat sacks. We tend to be a bit more compliant. So you're kind of seeing in there a lot of the shimming and moving around to the feet. Also, at one point, when he goes to put his foot down, you have to kind of look at it, but the foot is like really waving funny in the air, like it's trying to like, where's the ground? Where's the ground? It's like it's trying to reach, figure out where the ground is, and then finally it touches the ground and says, "Oh, okay, I know it's there." So some of the movements do seem a little bit odd for that reason.
And when you're mentioning the foot, have you kind of figured out what the special sock it's wearing, or
is it a shoe? Is it?
It seems the top of the foot is off also. So if you zoom in really closely, you'll see that he's missing the whole top of the foot. So that might be why it looks a bit bigger, because the upper part of the foot is gone. I'm not sure if it's a special new sole in the bottom or not.
For added friction, perhaps to not lose balance.
Perhaps
they're not trying to demonstrate the joint movements and what it's capable of, since it's supposed to be quite a big redesign for V3. Maybe this is more of how we can kind of
this is not
this
is not V3 at all. So that's the first thing I want to go out there. This is version 2. This is Gen 2. Period. Nothing else about it. However, 2. However, there are 3 2.5s in the background. See if you can spot them.
Yeah.
So if you go to the very beginning, it's hard to see because Optimus is blocking one of them. And once Optimus moves, he will reveal that one right there. That one. You can clearly see it, and you can see it because of the torso is a little bit different. You notice what I call the bib torso going around. Also, next to the operator in gray, the gray shirted operator, the one that's next to him, that's actually between the two right now, that is probably also, I didn't spot that earlier. Someone else kind of pointed out because I was seeing it from the back, but if you look at the forearm, you can say, oh, wait a minute, those are not the Optimus forearms. And then at some point, when we get way over to see where the desk jockeys are over there, you'll see there's also a 2.5 over there. So we have to wait till Optimus chases the human away, right? As they start to get over on the red carpet, you'll begin to see for an instant there's another one that shows up. A little bit more, and you get to see it. Do you see it? Right there. All right. Yeah. So that's one right there. So there are 3. These are the pilot production versions that we saw coming down. But we've never really seen them do anything except the ones that get painted gold and have been walking around. They're basically the same one. That's the 2.5. That is not version 3 at all. So what's the point of doing this entire exercise with a version 2 if version 3 is supposed to be coming out pretty soon? Any ideas?
Is it a
complete waste of time?
No, perhaps to give us something while we're waiting for V14 or.
Well, there's, I mean,
compensation.
in some ways, the feeling is like, well, we train everything for this spot, and then everything we have to throw out and retrain. We'll have to start from scratch. It may not be the case because at the Coral conference that was in South Korea this past week, there were a bunch of papers talking about cross-embodiment of people training with one bot and then very quickly. Yeah, well, sideways compatible, however you want to see it, or not so much back, but forward compatible. So meaning like your new design comes out, and it may be that a lot of stuff in your old design you may be able to move up there, and obviously there's a little bit of touch up you have to do, but it seems that they're showing really interesting cross embodiments where things were taught with one version. So Google DeepMind was showing something where they had like the Aloha robot, which is your standard robot, and they also had the Apollo robot, and I think one other kind of standard robotic arm, and only one of them was taught something about taking a tool off of the wall to do something. One of them knew how to do it, and the other 2 did the trick, so there's this operation that required it, and they were like, holy cow, wait a minute, where did they learn that trick? Because we had actually explicitly taught it with that embodiment. Right. So it could be that everything they're teaching here is not going to be a complete waste of time. And that's the most solid platform they have right now for being able to do everything is on that one. Why we're not seeing more of 2.5, I'm not quite sure what's up with that, whether there was something else going on, and that it seems like the trusty one is just 2.0.
Okay, that is fascinating because we've discussed in the past here on the channel about the ability to train 1 or 2 bots on a particular function, and then once the bot learns, essentially the entire fleet or the entire legion,
the hive mind,
would have that function.
Right, if they're the same. So the question is, can we?
But you're saying now that this is cross embodiment, so that this is a cross version.
That's what it seems like it's possible. I mean, in theory, right now it doesn't seem like you could train Optimus and then suddenly have Digit from Agility. It's like, oh, let's just send it over there. It's like, wait a minute, it's a completely different embodiment. But it seems like you might actually be able to, in some ways, is that a lot of what's learned there, you may be able to adapt it to different body types. And that's what some of these papers are hinting towards. Because again, what Google DeepMind was doing is Apollo is very different than the Aloha arm. The Aloha arm is a simple telerobotic 6-axis arm. And the fact that they were able to move between the two is really something else. So,
but would that be for general mobility or even fine motor movement?
In this case, it was like fine motor movement. I mean, because these were the bots going up. In one case, you've got these robots with like pinch your hands going over, picking up a tool and coming over and performing a task with it. And then you get Apollo that has actually 5 digits and is a very different embodiment going over and doing the same thing. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's like, where did it learn that? So it seems that the researchers are finding it's a lot easier to do this than they thought. I guess it's partly that all of FSD is trained on a 3, a Y, an S, and an X. And they seem to all perform just as well. I'm not aware there like being any real difference between the 2 or a 4, however you want to look at it. And it's probably because they are kind of similar, but they are a little bit different. And there's probably some things that they can tune. The fact that, the X ride's a little bit higher and it's maybe a little bit heavier than the 3 and stuff like that. But when it came to Cybertruck, it seemed like it was like very, very different. They had a much harder time. I mean, they were taking it, but it didn't quite go over. And it could be because the vehicle dynamics of Cybertruck is so much different. Maybe the placement of the cameras is just different enough that they weren't able to do it. But again,
I guess that would be the same for the Semi as well. Eventually.
Yeah. But it might be that a lot of it is just understanding that, hey, the amount of brake force or the amount of acceleration you're going to expect is going to be different because these are just different size vehicles. Their dynamics is very different. How you go around a corner, and one you might want to be a bit more careful versus one that might be a bit more tippy or slide a bit more. So, but that's something that they could probably clean up. I mean, the real thing is like, it's not that hard for you and me, right? We learn to drive and we get a new car, and it's just kind of getting familiar where everything is. And then we quickly understand that, this one, the acceleration is really slow or the brakes are a bit soft, a few things like that. But we quickly adapt to that because most of driving is our skill of understanding what the rules of the road are, and what we have to do. And you'll have some where the steering will feel a little bit different and you've got to compensate for that. But for the most part, if the bots are similar.
You still have to consciously adjust for when you're switching from, let's say, a sedan to a van.
Right. Exactly. But it's a pretty quick adjustment.
Yeah.
It's not like having to start all over again.
Yeah.
But still, it's like this sequence. Sure, they add an opponent or the human, but it's like the dancing sequence we saw back in spring was in ways more impressive when it comes to the fluidity of the motions and so on. So I'm still not really sure why they wanted to show this, or was it just that people were losing hope of ever seeing the Optimus again?
Well, there's been we've seen a couple of things recently, but not a whole lot like that. So this is the closest to an update. Part of it is that I'm not sure how wise this idea was, because what you've done is you've basically surrendered the narrative to Unitree.
Yeah.
Unitree is controlling the whole thing right now with their fighting bots and all the kung fu and everything. So everyone is saying, well, until we can show what Unitree is doing, no one's going to take us seriously. And this is why, I reposted it like everyone else, but I didn't repost it for clicks, but I basically posted it because I wanted to put out what my thoughts were. And I don't know if you have it out there, Royden, whether you want to read it, but I guess it's kind of disappointing that this is what the past couple of months have come to as far as bot updates. And that is, every bot is kung fu fighting. Those bots are fast as lightning. In fact, it's a little bit frightening how they fight with expert timing. No one is doing the right thing, rushing straight into the fight ring. Ain't one building us a damn thing, only dazzling us with fight bling. This is a distraction from the fact that no one has dexterous control of their hands enough to go into the factory and start building things for us like we had been promised a couple of years ago. And even there was indications that we would be seeing that this year. So I guess that's my disappointment, is that Unitree is doing this because they don't have hands. Okay. You don't need hands to box. Okay. And so everybody's just kind of falling in that narrative. It comes down to, what can you do with dexterous control? Start showing that and start impressing me with, the thing is, these things were supposed to be creative, not destructive. And we're showing them in a destructive form. And this really disappoints me.
Yeah.
But even when it comes to the fluidity of movement, and Gustav, we were chatting about this. Gustav suggested we bring this up because if you look at, I think Gustav, you were comparing the same kung fu movements between Optimus and Unitree.
So soon it will start having some of the forms of the katas of the Chinese styles, and of course Unitree is Chinese, so that first movement, this is the first form you learn within wushu. It's like Wu Bu Chan, the 5 stance fist or something. And my Chinese is really bad, so I apologize, but that's like the first form. And here it comes with what I think is drunken style, but since it can't do the different fists, it's kind of trying to emulate what drunken fist would look like, which is a funny type of kung fu. And here comes what's called a butterfly kick in English. And when I saw it, it's like, yeah, that's really impressive, but I wonder if they can do the twist, which took me many years. And here the hand actually fits, because this is the monkey fist, and you're supposed to have like a curled palm, and it does it pretty good. I mean, the stances and the moves aren't perfect, but here I can at least see what style it is. And then, of course, the flips. I don't know if that's going to be important for your everyday robot.
With the Superman landing.
But with the Superman landing, yeah. That's important as well. So I mean, they are. I'm almost more impressed with the Unitree one, and of course, you could show the twist. This took me like 8 years to manage, because I'm not very athletic. But it's like a continuation of this butterfly kick that it did, and then it adds a twist. So I thought was really impressive that it managed to land that. And this does not look CGI to me. Some of their earlier work, I'm still convinced, was just rendered, but these new ones, either they are better at making it look real, but that motion is quite tricky if you're a unathletic Swede like me. So yeah, I'm actually more impressed with them. But then, of course, it weighs less. It's perhaps
half the mass.
Half the mass.
Half the mass and a little bit shorter. Yeah, about 4 feet tall.
And they've been playing around with this for quite some time, so perhaps they are more experienced in getting the bot to flip around and do crazy maneuvers compared to the Tesla bot. But same here, it's just a mannequin hand. The hand is having the exact same pose for all of these things. So maybe get on with that instead. But perhaps that's not Unitree's goal, I guess. They're just building the mass production bot that everyone else can kind of play around with, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a mass and cost penalty to putting a hand on there. So you can do quite a bit more dynamically, power consumption, everything, if you don't have to worry about a hand.
Yeah.
You just kind of take that away. And again, the business end of the bot is the hand. That's where all the productivity is going to come from. So these bots are going to make a living being entertainers at first. That seems to be the indication that they will be funny before they are useful, is something that Michael Choi said, who has actually a stable of Unitrees, like I think about 40 or so, bring them to these fights. And I guess, he's getting his money back, because there's paying customers that love to see bots beat one another up. And my understanding is the bots are going to break within 60 days anyway, so you may as well get your mileage out of them.
Get your money out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I really liked your post, Scott, because it kind of hit the nail on the head for a lot of things that we've discussed here in the past, and which is, why do these bot companies demonstrate these moves? What are they trying to signal? And what's the point? Are they really going to be used in the low-hanging fruit?
It's a distraction. It's actually a distraction, because these kung fu moves are not going to be necessary in the factory floor in many situations. John and I were talking about a little bit, sometimes it's not bad to do a little bit of cross-fitness training, because you never know, you could be in some sort of setting at home that someone suddenly falls and you get this kung fu move that you just get over and grab them, because like this built-in kind of reflex that you've been able to put in there. So they may be of use that way, but I really don't see a whole lot of utility. There's another Chinese bot company about a week ago, and this is Ubitech. They announced their Walker 2. And I was actually more impressed with it than I expected to be, because I referred to it, the bot, as being like so mid. There's like nothing really special or spectacular about the bot. And that's what's actually so good about it, is that they went for this use case, and that it's not going to do backflips. It's not going to run very fast, but it can walk 2 meters per second, which is like more than fast enough that you need for the factory. So it's just enough. It has just like your really standard run-of-the-mill 11 DOF hand. But guess what? It can like pick up all the parts that they need to pick up in the factory. It's got a horrible wrist, so they have two kind of hands, in those cases they don't need hands, but they decided, hey, that kind of range of motion, they can actually bend down and stoop. They figured out everything that they needed and they built their bot around that. And it's able to function. See, it's a horrible wrist. I don't like that wrist, but it's good enough for the job. It's got adequate access. It's low cost to build. It's going to be very stable. And then this thing here is they put in a degree of freedom in the waist that I did not expect. They put a second Y. They don't have the X. They have the Y degree of freedom there. And everyone's like, wait a minute, no one's doing that. Why? Is because they wanted that kind of deep fold-up squat to go on in there. So, and it's almost like a redundant one because they have it also in the hip actuators. And again, even their hip, it's not the far hip. They're sticking with the Tesla kind of hip, which is the ARF hip, which in some ways is like, man, it's like, why did they change their mind? Because they weren't looking for being able to do backflips, which they may need.
Yeah.
Which you would have to have if you wanted to compete head to head with Unitree. So hats off to them. I don't think we're ever going to see these guys showing us kung fu moves, and I hope they don't.
They don't need to.
I want them to show us this. Yes.
Yeah. But that's the point. That's this just goes back to what Eric Schmidt said at the Elon Summit maybe a week and a half back, where he spoke about the difference in approach between the way China is approaching the development of AI-enabled humanoid bots and the way American companies are.
Right.
I had thought that China and the United States were competing at the peer level in AI, and that the good work that you have done and your predecessors did to restrict chips were slowing them down. They're really doing something more different than I thought. They're not pursuing crazy AGI strategies, partly because of the hardware limitations that you've put in place, but partly because the depth of their capital markets don't exist. They can't raise, based on a wing and a prayer, $100 million or RMB equivalent to build the data centers. They just can't do it. And so the result is they're very focused on taking AI and applying it to everything. And so the concern I have is that while we're pursuing AGI, which is incredibly interesting and we should talk about, and all of us will be affected by this, we better also be competing with the Chinese in day-to-day stuff.
Right.
Consumer apps, this is something you understand very well, Chamath. Consumer apps, robots, and so forth and so on. I saw all the Shanghai robotics companies, and these guys are attempting to do in robots what they've successfully done with electric vehicles.
Yeah. And that's what they're doing. My understanding is that they even have a big order. They have like orders that maybe are close to what Unitree has been getting, but Unitree's orders are just going to researchers. Everyone wants to get their hands on Unitree so they can tear them down, see how they're built, do some of their RL training. Even humanoid startups are buying them to start their RL training policies while they actually start coming up with their own. So it's being helpful that way. But then you're looking again at Ubitech is coming up with, it seems like it's a substantial order that's going to be going into a factory and proving something. So in some ways, they're in kind of a leadership position with the deployment. And again, hats off to them. But if you also think about it, up till this point, the Western bots have been more like Ubitech of not trying to be flashy. And now suddenly they're all kind of falling into this, we've got to do kung fu moves too. It's like, no, this is what I want to see. This is what I wanted to see.
Figure and 1X, they're not really doing that, right? They are still kind of,
you're right.
I guess they're mostly showing what we can do in the home rather than, but still.
Yes.
But why do you think that shift is happening? Is it purely a means to distract from the fact that they're slipping behind in the race, or?
Well, I mean, part of it is these fight leagues are a big thing right now, and now everyone wants to get in the ring. And there may be a certain amount of durability and testing that's going to come along with it. And you can't deny the fact that there's a lot of publicity that goes on. So there is kind of that temptation to do it. It'll be interesting to see how many take the bait and decide that's what we're going to do. And how many just say, not interested, that, we know exactly what we want to do. Our bots are fine. We're going to stay focused on that.
Yeah, but I thought that was Tesla's demo, right? That they're not interested. They're really focused on what matters.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I mean, the temptation is going to be really hard because, up in San Francisco, there's a fight club going on right now. And there's a bunch of other startups that have already said, we're ready to bring our bots in there. So there's going to start being battles between different brands now. There's no doubt about that's going to happen. So it's going to be really hard to say, hey, come on, Optimus, come on up here. It's like, you showed us your moves. Let's actually see it. So I think it's going to be really hard to not be up there.
To manage the Chinese martial arts, you need the dexterous hand to be able to do like the praying mantis and the drunken fist. You can't just have the. You need to get the dexterous hand anyways.
Look, there's what? Wait, you need to like poke their eyes out or something like that? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
All you have to do is like land a hard fist, and that's it.
Yeah. But not on this guy. He keeps getting up.
He's like John Wick. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least when I look at these other bots, the Chinese bots, they seem a bit too accomplished for me and a bit too scary. At least Optimus, with at least in what we've seen, the little ungainly bit and the less than polished kung fu moves are a bit reassuring, if I can say so.
Not supposed to go faster than 5 miles per hour.
Okay, so what do you think about the foot? Is that a new foot? Is that a shoe? What are we looking at?
Oh, I think it's just the old foot with the cover off. You can see everything. So I don't think there's anything new. Again, unless they're testing out some new feature of Gen 3 that they just want to see what's going on, I don't think you're going to really see any changes in the hardware here. This is just for the training policy. And the other thing to point out is that the gentleman with the gray shirt back there is probably controlling that crane, that overhead crane that's moving right now with a lanyard, and may also be acting as kind of a spotter in case Optimus does something wrong to hit the E-stop.
So Gustav, immediately what stood out for me was, and of course, Scott, you're saying that this is perhaps extremely choreographed, but even a normal human hand on the hard robot's forearm making contact will hurt.
Yeah, yes. So perhaps they're also showing that, I don't know, that it's safe to be around. But I'm not sure I'm convinced when it's choreographed. I mean, you could practice that session a few times, but there must be some kind of point of that we want to show that it's not dangerous. He can do the choreographed move without hurting our colleague or stuntman. So and there's not a lot of force in those moves, of course, but still, if it trips and manages to flail out with the arm, he could really break a nose or something.
Right.
And of course, the most important move, the Henry Cavill cocking of the arms when
exactly.
That was cool.
The reload of the arms after that.
Yeah.
This
totally
is something
unnecessary, but just for cosmetic purposes, I suppose.
Yes, and it may be that's something they put in there when everybody gets knocked off balance. That it just kind of goes through that thing, just as a humorous reset. It could be that kicked it in literally when he got knocked over. But other things we've talked about on this channel before, that when we talk about rocket launches, and that you'll hear the call out, nominal trajectory, and that's because when the rocket's going up, they know exactly where it's supposed to be every second of flight, what its velocity should be, what its acceleration should be, where its location, all that. So they're like, there's this flight path that should just be on there. And if it's ever not on the trajectory, that's when they say it's off nominal, and they know they either have to do a correction. That's basically what a control system is all about, right? It's like, we know you want to be here, and they just keep on making whatever changes of like, touch the accelerator a little bit faster or back off, or, steer yourself in a slightly different direction. And the same thing happens with the robot, is that we plan a trajectory and we know exactly where it's supposed to be everywhere along the way. And we know exactly what our motor torques are supposed to be when we're doing that in, say, an unloaded kind of situation. So when Optimus is throwing his arm out there, it knows exactly what the motor torque should be. If suddenly he was to come into contact with something, then suddenly everything goes off nominal. And then at that point, it knows to stop. And that's exactly how a cobot works, is that a cobot is moving around with an expectation of what it's able to do something. And if something hits it, it will stop immediately because it's assuming, I'm coming in contact with a person. So that's sort of the first line of defense, is that if you hit something. The other line of defense, hopefully, are the eyes, where the eyes may be noticing whether it's actually in contact or doing something, or being hyper safe, hyper vigilant around that kind of time, perhaps. But again, it seems like there would almost have to be some overrides, because remember how Optimus refused to start walking when Elon and Mark Benioff were near it. They had to kind of give it a safe space. So that means they had to literally drop a lot of guards here in order for it to do it. And again, that push off there was Optimus already in kind of a position expecting that was going to get pushed back.
Yeah, because I don't think there are proximity sensors or anything on the forearm or the outer.
There's no proximity. The proximity sensors are you come in contact, and it can kind of feel that because again, it's like, well, wait a minute, you're back driving me in a direction that I'm not expecting here, and the other are just going to be the eyes. So the question is like, what kind of resolution you can get from the eyes?
Can you perhaps drill down a bit more on that, Scott? Of how efficient is that reaction time when and how do you sense it with an actuator?
Oh, with an actuator is again
contact,
basically the contact is that suddenly your current goes up because you're trying to apply a certain torque or certain velocity, and as soon as there's resistance, suddenly it goes up, and you can measure that spike really quickly. And that's how all these cobots work. They also have sensors in there. So there's two ways. One is the motor itself can sense it, and the other is they actually have torque force sensors in there to detect that, wait a minute, there's something happening here at this joint that is not what we expect, and then they kick in the protocol to stop.
Okay. But that would be for, let's say, a hard object, right? If you're looking at, let's say, a cooker board.
Hard, soft, anything. If you're pushing on it, so it would kind of know and then make some sort of decision. So it's going to either stop moving or not apply as much force. The industrial robots have that problem, is that when they come up against something that's resistance, they just push harder. That was the idea. It's like, I'm trying to get back on course here, and the only way to get on course is I got to go faster now, and it'll push harder, just assuming it's kind of resistance. Just like if we were doing any sort of task, it's like, okay, I want to keep it going. And that's when operators have been pinned to the wall because there was like these big brutish arms are too stupid to realize that there was a person in the way. The cobots are designed the other way, is that one, they stop when they sense that, and the other is that they're back drivable. So they don't like kick on brakes or do anything like that. It's like, you want to push the thing out of the way, you can push the arm out of the way without any problem. So those are two things. But this is going to be interesting, is that, the three laws of robotics, one is not to cause any harm to a human. Yeah. So right there's that potential of a little bit of harm, almost intentional, because you're using it as a sparring partner, and there's no padding on there. So you would expect, at least some boxing gloves on Optimus, just to be sure, because that is a fistful of dollars there, right?
In the end, the guy with the controller kind of comes over and says, what was that? Or he makes some kind of comment. I wonder what.
Yeah,
we're overinterpreting everything, but it kind of.
Did you catch what he said?
Not says, quite. Something about the push-up.
Yeah. He was like, "What was that?" or something. And I don't know. Maybe it's just a random comment, but it's like, they kept it in there for a reason. Me and my conspiracy.
Yes. Right.
And that's a very like karate, or at least I think, move at the end. So, I guess Japanese martial arts and not kung fu. So we need to rename. Tell Elon that it's
not kung fu.
I think it's just mixed martial arts. Let's just call it that. Settle it. Mixed martial MMA. All right. So this is another interesting bit that I came across, and help us make sense of this. This is Ashok Aluswamy. Okay, so we've discussed this in the past about the difference between the AI stack for humanoid bots and the AI stack for FSD, and you succinctly explained it in the past, because Scott, that the FSD is the car that's trying to avoid objects, and the bot is the one that's trying to manipulate the real world and manipulate objects in the real world. So this is a bit of a curveball when Ashok says, just the beginning, once the AI models for self-driving and Optimus unify, it's going to be lit.
Yeah, what is it there? Is it the inference part, or is it something else? Or
yeah, I think part of the inference, and the other is just getting visual cues. And there's a lot of things FSD needs to do, and one is obviously go from point A to point B, which means it's basically already has a choreography. You just drive down this road. That's what you're supposed to do. But along the way, random acts are happening. Cars are slowing down, cutting them off, taking a turn right in front of them. Car doors are opening. Pedestrians are coming up to crosswalks and stuff like that. And FSD has to interpret all those things and decide what is the correct course of action to take at this point. So with what was going on with Optimus, I'm pretty sure we saw full choreography, but there's another way it could have been done. And again, it's kind of going back to video games where you already have these preset moves that you're able to do, and it's just a question of pushing the right button to get the, to jump, the lunge, the punch, the kick out, all those things in there. So potentially you could have someone off screen that was just going ahead and saying, okay, right now, Optimus, just go ahead and run this routine and do this and that or something like that. Or it could have been that it was sort of deciding on its own what it wanted, sequences it wanted to go through right now. And it may have been taking the cues from the opponent, which I guess when you actually get into a fight, isn't that what you're supposed to be doing? You see that your opponent is doing something and there's like 1 or 2 or 3 possible reactions to that, or maybe 1, and it's making that sort of decision. So FSD, especially when you start getting into parking lots, needs to be much better at reading what humans are doing. It's going to have to be not so much that there's a human in the way. It's like, what's the intent? Is the person looking at me? Are they distracted? Is there something else that's kind of going on? And Optimus needs to do the same thing. That if we're going to allow Optimus to walk down the street, it needs to walk down a sidewalk without bumping into people. So that's the mode of Optimus not interacting with the world. That's the Optimus being the FSD mode of making sure to navigate the scenario where you have a lot of things that are kind of in your way, as well as deciding evasive maneuvers, which again could be very good in more social situations where that Optimus is trying to read, well, what is it you want? What do you want me to do right now? And it could be that, you're in the restaurant and you get Optimus' attention and put my hand up like this. It's like, oh, you want me to come over? So just simple things like that.
Okay, so first question, how far away do you think they could be to reaching that point where they unify the 2 stacks? And B, the second question would be, how far ahead of the rest of the pack, the rest of the humanoid bot pack, would that place Optimus?
Okay.
Because that's a superpower.
I think the answer to that might be AI 5 when they get full unification. It may be that there's overlaps in there already. There's some chunks of code that are very similar that they've put in. And it's sort of been indicated that AI 5 would be, closer to being in both. I think Elon had something about that. My assumption is that they're all using AI 4. I don't think AI 5 exists yet, except maybe on the drawing board, or maybe they're just getting ready to get some out there. So I don't think it would be probably until then. And part of it might be because they're realizing that, okay, at first we thought FSD would be absolutely perfect for Optimus. And then they put it and they realized that, oh, wait a minute, you know what? We really designed this for self-driving cars, not for humanoids, and that there's some deficiencies in the architecture, and we have to make up for that. And they're trying to cram that in there while at the same time not compromising what was on the FSD. So there's probably like a lot of horse trading and everything else where everything's going to go. And it might be like, yeah, we can't quite do that in the AI4. It's really still designed for self-driving. But AI5, we may have enough headroom, enough capability to put it in there. They may be thinking of additional sensors that, I don't know if those chips were like, oh, they're about what? I think the first ones were really 8 cameras. And now there might be ability for 12 or something like that because they want the internal camera and a bumper camper and a couple other things. And then the other question is like, what about other sensors like, sound? So I assume FSD is going to need the mic because a lot of driving is also knowing emergency vehicles and other things going on around you.
Yeah, but so I think that's already a function. Right? That's already a feature.
Yeah, that's already a function. But the question is how well those chips are sort of designed with that idea of that's going to be some of the input when suddenly the realization, oh, we get a lot more. And remember that, what's the output that this thing is supposed to produce? Well, it's just like how much to turn the wheel and how much, acceleration, how much in the brake pedal. There's, maybe throw the blinker on, stuff like that. Not a whole lot of outputs going on there. Whereas obviously with a bot, you have a lot more. So you're going to be, I think right now, 68 actuators, I think is probably what V3 is going to be if we take, Elon saying 26 in the arm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And if they kind of keep the same count everywhere else, it turns out to be right around like 68, somewhere between 68 and 70. I have a feeling he's going to add one more degree of freedom that's absolutely unnecessary.
How many cameras do you think that would be on the bot eventually?
Cameras, I would think probably somewhere between 6 and 8. I think they're using 6 right now. They may add a few more because it's sort of tempting to say that how many do we need up here? We need to have stereo vision, maybe a fisheye, because usually they have about 3 there. They might have some on the sides, probably one in the back just for backing up. Yeah. There's always the ideas like, do you need a chin camera or do you need one on the chest? The temptation of maybe putting some in the hands or maybe someone down the lower body. So the original design was kind of showing them in many different locations. This is the AI day one design. You went through, you're able to count them. It's like, oh, look, the camera, and then the cameras didn't show up. It might be that they're thinking of putting them back in. The argument can be like, you don't need them. Us humans, we get by fine without them. But the argument's like, well, yeah, we do, but we also have these other senses that allow us to get. I mean, how many of us would love to be able to have eyes in our hands when we reach behind something? And the reason we don't have eyes in our hands is because our tactile sensor is able to make up for it. But as you could see, Rodney Brooks was, saying that, without this, the humanoids are not going to become anything. It's like they need all the stuff, and it sounds like absolutely impossible to duplicate the human nervous system with all that stuff. And a lot of it is like, well, it's because we've evolved to know how to use those things. It doesn't mean there's another embodiment that couldn't be equally well. And we had kind of this back and forth, Gustav, about that actually up in your neck in the woods was an interesting study with lighting matches. That you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so my former boss actually was quoted in his blog, Roland Johansson, who has done a lot of work on tactile sensors, and he kind of wrote the book on shear forces in fingertips. So there is this example of a lady who first lights a match, no problem, and then they anesthetize her finger, and she tries to pick up the candle or the match and light it. So she manages, but it takes some time. And your response, which I kind of agree on, is that over time she would learn how to adapt to the new situation. But I still think that's similar to when we were talking about teleoperation like a year ago, that you do it in a different way. You don't do it the same way as if you have your tactile sensors. But a camera there for the bot would perhaps be better, because then you don't have to feel it. The camera in the hand looks where the finger are. And then when you have like a pinch grip or a robotic hand, you kind of, when you grab it, it's there. We need the feedback. The bot probably doesn't to the same extent, because we don't really know how hard we're pinching something if we lose all tactile and proprioception and everything else. So like if you want to take it in steps, if you just lose the skin sensors but you still have proprioception from your joints and your muscles and your tendons, you're probably a lot better off than if you lose all of that. Then it's much harder to pick up the match. But if you just lose some sensation, you will learn how to pick things up, and your patients will kind of find a method of picking up coins or whatever. But it's not the natural way of doing it. So, and the same would be for the bot. I mean, if you have other modalities that you're using, it might be that they will pick it up slightly differently. Or as I think that the bot will be better at kind of intuitively thinking, how much force do I need to pick up this match with? They don't need the feedback as much as we do.
Yes. I think the he was trying to make a strong point there. It's like, you see, because of this thing here, the bots will never be performant. And I'm looking at that and saying, whoa, wait a minute. It's like, in the end, she did light the match.
Yeah, exactly.
Which proves that she could do it without it. And she was 4 times slower. And the other thing is, like, she'd only had like 5 minutes to practice or not. I mean, that was like her first attempt after a lifetime of lighting matches that way. And suddenly, and you're saying that's not a fair comparison. And so I say, if she's an anesthetizer, you find people that have actually lost that sensation. Over time, they get it back. They may not be as sharp as they once were, but it's a lot better. And then he goes to a big thing in there about like how the muscles are able to do the tension, stuff like that. It's like, what do you think force feedback and torque control feedback is? My God, you were like on the team that designed the Baxter robot, which has exactly that kind of thing. So the force feedback is there, and you're right about the proprioception, because the bot knows I want to get my finger in this position, and it can measure angles with precision. We have to kind of look at it and through some sort of weird sensation know that, but it knows exactly what that angle is that it wants to have, and it can tell the pinching force. So again, if I'm picking up something delicate, I know it's delicate because my eyes see it. I know it's a soft object. I will apply something soft. But if I know it's a heavy thing or it's a hard thing, I can apply a little bit more. and you're right. So you have these different modalities that will allow you to do it. You won't be able to do it exactly as a human, but there's the idea that they just won't be able to do the same things we don't, just because we showed that you take away one human sensation and it's very hard. And you, I mean, your counter has always been people lose their, their fingers, and within 6 months, it's like they don't miss it, and you're actually shocked that they don't miss it, and they're purely functional on that in a way. So it turns out you don't need as much input as people think. You just need to practice.
Yeah, which goes back to the point we've been talking over on the channel again and again, which is what's your MVP, what's your minimal viable product that you need to launch to market. Yeah. And it just goes back to the Chinese concept of being useful before being fancy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on which one. So if you look at Ubitech, they're being useful before fancy. Meanwhile, Unitree is out there kind of doing this stuff and distracting the rest of the world. And it's almost like, man, it's this huge psyop that's just going on, that's just making everyone go in the wrong direction. It's like, wait a minute, look at the magician. What's the magician doing, with his hands? Don't be distracted with this. So that's why I think Unitree in this whole Fight Club stuff is this huge distraction from what everyone should be concentrating on. And it's that's what you should be concentrating on. It's boring. It's dull. But hey, they're actually, I have yet to see the Unitree do anything useful.
Entertainment is useful.
Yeah, it's entertainment. If you consider that useful. But as far as actually, taking objects and there's a couple of demonstrations showing that, oh yeah, look, I can get my Unitree bot to pick up a box and bring it over here. It's like, what do you do? That's not really that performative. I want to see something more like what Walker's doing. Now, we don't, again, that could be a heavily edited video that makes everything look like really good. But if it really is doing that and it's able to kind of perform that task, that means they are doing something useful.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's useful in the sense that they're developing actuators and techniques and providing the labs with this quite cheap bot to play around with, and they can kind of innovate based on it. Yeah. But the bot in itself will probably not be
the total addressable market of both these use cases for the labs as well as for Fight Club entertainment is minuscule when you compare it to the total labor market.
Right. Now they have to hope that they get enough capital, enough experience from this that they can come up with the next generation that'll be better, because they cannot just rest on that. Again, a lot of people are taking advantage of the fact that these bots are really cheap and they're a really good R&D development platform. No doubt about it. So everyone says, yeah, let's get that out there while we try to work out what our hardware is supposed to look like. So in some ways, they are providing a service to a lot of people, and we may be more worried than we really should, in the sense that means like, oh, they've won the battle. It's like, or won the war. Maybe they've won a battle here, but it's far from over. And it could be that they are giving enough people experience on how to build a bot, and also, more importantly, how not to build a bot.
And then comes the conspiracy part with having these bots in all robotics labs around the world, just collecting the data and send it back to the mothership.
Yeah, there was a couple of people that went in and said there was some suspicious tracking mechanisms in there, and that actually resulted in Unitree having to reply. So the fact that they replied meant that it touched a nerve somewhere. Yeah, that they realized that this is not a good look, and they went in and said, oh, you have to be authorized to do this and that, and give us permission. And then whoever did it countered that and said, no, I gave it absolutely no authorization, and it was still trying to contact the mothership.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll have to end it at that. Thank you so much, Scott and Gustav. Always a pleasure to have you. And Gustav, thank you for making the effort, taking the effort, the extra effort to come dressed. Well, Optimus has a few things to learn from you, Gustav. All right.
Yeah, give me a call.
Elon, give him a call.
Okay. Hit 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah. All right. Till next time.
Bye-bye.